Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, seems like we are good to go. We'll start the lecture at 7. Talk to you then. Hey everyone, for some reason the chat on the stream I can't see for some reason. So could you do me a favor and go to My Learning, the D2L site, and go to select Other, and then go to the Lecture 7 chat room. And then you can chat in that room, and you will need this to do. You'll need to go to this chat room to do the activity tonight. So I'm there now, and I'll see you all there in a minute. Hello, everybody. Okay, so for those looking for the chat room in Desire to Learn, it should be under the there's a menu item called Other, and then there's a chat item there. So click on there and go into the chat. I suppose the YouTube chat is working, but let's all get in the Desire to Learn chat right now, because we're going to be using that for the activity for tonight. Okay, I see a few more people in the chat. Okay, I'll just give your classmates a few minutes to get online and on the stream. Just going to go grab a glass of water. I'll be right back, and we will get started. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you had a good March break and you are all rested and relaxed and ready to finish the rest of the semester. It's probably a badly needed break. I certainly needed one. So sorry about the change of venue tonight. Had some weather-related issues and couldn't make it up tonight, but we should be back live next week. So this week, I changed up the. Let's get into the lecture a little bit here. So this week, I switched around classes 7 and classes 9. So the topic that we're looking at right now was traditionally it was set up to be 2 weeks from now. But I wanted to do this class today because you will need the stuff we are talking about and doing in today's class for your next assignment. And, you know, I was thinking back to the research, looking at your research assignments, which I am almost done. I'll be able to release the grades tonight. They were, the grades were similar to the last assignment. So no fails, no A pluses, but a few A's, a few B's, a few C's. But I was looking back and at least the survey and thing, probably if I would to teach this course again, I would have done more activities in the earlier classes so that, you know, you would actually watch me do a survey, or you could do them in class and then ask me questions, so that the assignment isn't really the first time when you're getting marked, isn't really the first time that you're doing a thing. So I decided to make the best of this course and try and do that in this course. And that's why I'm doing this lecture before your assignment is due rather than on the day that it's due, so that you can see the topics and have a little practice and then contribute to your assignment and get an awesome mark. Okay, so how is everyone in the chat room? If you can hear me okay, just give me a little hello in the chat so I know that you can hear me and that the chat room is working. Okay, I'll just give you a second. There's a bit of a delay on this. There we go. Okay, seems like people can hear me. Excellent. So today we are going to talk about evaluative user research methods, and the stuff on interaction design and visual design we are going to do on the 11th. Fair enough? Okay. So your assignments will be released, the marks will be released tonight. Your third assignment is not due this week or next week, but the week after on March 11th. So I hope that you've been working diligently on your low fidelity prototype, because probably, you know, at least the next week, you're going to want to spend doing the user testing that we're talking about today, usability testing. And then you'll want some time to, let me just relook at the assignment really quick. You'll want some time to do an iteration. I believe I put something in there for an iteration. Propose changes. So you at least need to have time to propose changes. And then in the next assignment is when you actually implement them. Okay, but you'll still need some lead time. So do not procrastinate on your prototype. Okay? Okay. So let's get started. So we're talking about testing, and this is an expansion of the research talk that we had in lecture. Where did we talk about research? In lecture 4, we talked about user research and personas. Personas was a way to represent the user. So if you'll notice in that type of research, we didn't have anything to actually put in front of users, right? We didn't have a prototype. We didn't have a sketch or a drawing or anything to put in front of users. We were just studying users and their tasks and their problems, agnostic to any potential solution. So usually that type of research is going to be the research you're going to do up front, just really by the necessity of reality, because you can't have anything built until you build it. You can't build it until you know the people you're building for. So it's a chicken and egg. You can't have one before the other. So you need to do some user research through surveys, like you did through in your assignment, through interviews. A big one that I like that I'm organizing currently right now at my job is just straight observation. Is just go in a room, in a place where people are doing things, and watch them. I think I've given you a couple examples where this was really helpful to me. So the example I always use is when I was designing for CIBC, and we were creating, I was designing a screen for a scanner that we were thinking about putting behind the counter. And what we did was just observe the business banking cage. I just went there and stood, so many of you may not have have a business account, but there's a separate teller you go to if you have a business account. And so I just stood in that place for an hour or two and really realized that our whole approach wasn't really going to work, because at least for the business side, because it was so much more the demands for quickness and to be done really fast were much higher than on the consumer side. So that's that style. That's that type of research. The initial research that is looking at people and their problems. Okay, so what we're talking about today is the research that you do after that. So after you have done that initial research, now you're going to want to actually put pen to paper or mouse to screen, so to speak, and create something. And then you'll want to test it against your users in one form or fashion. Okay, so what I'm going to go through in this lecture, so we're going to lecture for not too long today. It's going to be a pretty short lecture class, maybe somewhere between a half hour and an hour. I know I always say that and end up talking for 3 hours, but today it's really true. So, but you'll notice that as I go through my lecture, we'll get from, when the thing you're building is very early on, very unformed. It's not refined yet. And you'll see as we go through, the idea is to refine your artifact or your prototype more and more by iterating against users, right? That's the whole concept of this user-centered design that we talked about right at the beginning of the course. So the first type of research like this that you're going to do is something called concept exploration, right? This is when this could be pretty early on. This could be before you even have an idea of what the application might actually do, right? So you might just maybe want to explore you want to explore some brand ideas, right? A concept for a brand and what people get from your brand. What messages are they receiving from the words you use for your brand, from the imagery that you use, things like that. It can also mean maybe an exploration of something a little more functional. So maybe not just brand ideas, but maybe a wireframe or sometimes visual, like mock-ups that are visually designed, or prototypes. So let me just talk about that for a minute. So I think I did this spiel already about the argument about just because you can do something, should you? And so that we're faced with that question in design, because we can make a prototype that is absolutely pixel perfect. It looks exactly like the final product will. It acts exactly like the final product will, or potentially will, and basically just is a very similar simulation. But you might not always want to do that. And you just have to understand what it is you're after and realize that if you do include brand and visual design mockups, your participants may be distracted or may comment on that when you want them to comment on other things. So for example, you may want to see if, usually at this phase, we're looking to see if something is potentially a solution for a user's problem, right? So typically you might have like wireframes or rough prototypes that you would have that you've put together that then you would put in front of the user and have them actually do something, right? So, and then maybe make some comments and things. And the thing is, if those prototypes are very polished and not in the way that it'll eventually look, you may be wasting your time because you may get feedback on the visual design when you actually want feedback on, is this tool going to actually solve the problem that you have? Or at least that's one of the kind of purposes of this concept exploration, right? So right at the bottom is a good summary. So this concept exploration happens after you've done, defined your user groups, done all the research on your user groups and their problems and their a task analysis, all these different ways of researching your users. And now you are ready. So after that, but before you get every little detail of each page or screen. So maybe at this stage, let me see what the next slide is here. Right. So at this stage, you might mock up the main feature in a happy path. So what a happy path means everything succeeds in the feature in the feature. So let's say the feature was registration process. So you might show those screens, but with no error messaging. No path, because sometimes if your password isn't properly formed or long enough, there might be an error there. Or if the username already exists, there might be an error path there. So in concept, we're not really testing those things quite yet. Okay, we are looking at a wider picture. What I usually recommend is, so you'll need to do another set of testing towards the end of design. And I think, do I have slides on? Yeah, I do. So we're talking about usability testing. I won't jump the gun and jump ahead. We'll talk. So there's concept exploration kind of near the front, and there's usability research towards the end. Okay. Okay. Just let me know if you guys have any questions. I think this stuff's pretty straightforward so far, but let me know. Okay, so a couple of reasons why you might want to do some concept exploration. So they can provide inspiration for designers, or because you go and you get feedback from users, you hear what they say. A lot of times, even though I don't like focus groups, a lot of times you might present a concept to a focus group or to in an interview or something like that, a one-on-one, and then you might hear unexpected things coming back at you, right? You might hear just different ideas and alternative viewpoints, and that can really inspire you to think a different way and to try a different concept out. I think a lot of times designers get emotionally attached to a solution. That absolutely happens to me. When I come up with what I think is a very novel and neat solution, it can be very difficult, and I hesitate a lot to move on and try something different. But if I have some input from an external source, someone I don't know, a stranger, sometimes if you have, like, I have young kids, and they're always sometimes they listen to strangers a little bit more than they listen to their parents, right? But it's the same kind of thing. So that's one part of it. The biggest part is you want to reduce some of the risk. You can't reduce all of the risk, but you want to reduce as much risk as possible of bringing a new product to market. So the thing with digital software, however, and I've been really thinking about this a lot lately because I've been putting together some processes for my job, and the problem with digital software is creating a fully functional prototype. So something that actually works essentially means you have to develop it. So for example, if I wanted to have a mobile app that had GPS technology, for example, or utilized push notifications over a long period, or use the gyroscopes in the phone, you know, to do some control or something like that, you essentially need to build it, like develop it, right? It's not like if you have a physical product that even if it has electronics in it, it's much cheaper to build a one-off physical product prototype that fully functions like a mass-produced physical product, right? Imagine what it would take to mass produce like a pair of scissors or something and make 1 million pairs. It would cost hundreds and thousands or millions of dollars. But to create one physical pair of scissors that you had to fabricate yourself is a fraction of the cost. But that doesn't hold true with software, right? To make a prototype, like, so if I made a prototype of a pair of scissors, I could hand you that pair of scissors and you could cut paper with them, right? You could cut along the paper and say, oh, you know what? These scissors feel really smooth and they fit in my hand really nicely and it's very light, right? You could do that and actually have them cut scissors. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen in digital, because in order to, quote, make an app that cuts paper, quote, you know what, cuts paper, like actually functions, right? That actually sends an email, sends a text, tracks you on GPS. You have to build it, right? So it's kind of the reverse, because in software, it costs, let's say, X dollars to build the initial thing, but then it's free for every new product that you build. Whereas it's kind of the opposite. With a physical product, it gets cheaper and cheaper the cost, the actual dollar cost goes up and up and up and up as you build more items. Okay, so often in software, I've been having this very discussion with a lot of my colleagues, is you can't make a functional prototype. Designers won't be able to do that. And so why I'm talking about this is reducing some risk. So, for example, I'm working on an app right now for Shoppers Drug Mart and Loblaw, and we're looking at things like video conferencing with a medical service provider, booking online, searching through directories, things like that. And the research so far has been showing people pictures of this app and asking them, what do you think about this? If you could renew your prescription on a mobile app, would you do that? That people, researchers will ask them. Unfortunately, I don't think that's a very good way of reducing risk, because looking at pictures and thinking something is neat is totally different than actually using something in your day-to-day, right? How many times have you seen an ad or someone told you about an app and you downloaded it and you used it once and you thought, cool, and then you never used it again, right? I have probably 50, I don't know how many apps I have on my phone, but it's a lot, and I probably use maybe 5 on the regular, right? So just be aware of that, okay? Because often I see in digital design is UX strategy, or this discovery phase, largely consisting of showing focus groups pictures. Now, if I showed you a picture of that same pair of scissors, right, would you be able to give me the feedback that you gave me while you were using it in your hand? I don't think so, right? Because and what would happen is, if you saw a picture of the scissors, you would focus on, what would you focus on? What you see, the visual aspect of it. And maybe that's probably the least important part for a pair of scissors. If a pair of scissors looks amazing but hurts your hand when you use it, how many times are you going to use it? Once, maybe, right? So just be weary. Just because you show someone a picture of your app and say, hey, would you use this in the future? And they say, oh yeah, for sure. Make sure you take that with a gigantic boulder of salt, because that is in no way a guarantee that your product is going to be successful in the long term and in the real world and in the real market. Okay, so but the idea is to reduce risk. So I'll admit, okay, so putting pictures in front of people, right, reduces it a little bit, because what if people, you could get the opposite problem where people would say, oh no, I would never ever use this. But again, you need to sort of take these things with a grain of salt. And I think I have a good slide. Oh yes. So does anyone know who this old guy is? This guy's a famous, very famous industrialist. I'll give you a second, and first person to type it in the chat wins a prize. Who's this guy? Anyone? Anyone recognize the quote? Yeah. Oh, there we go. We got an answer. Henry Ford. Good job. Our Couchemier's. It's only giving me your first initial and last name, but that's okay. Okay, so yes, this is Henry Ford. And Ford, we got another answer, but which Ford? There's lots of Fords. Gerald Ford? Henry Ford is the more correct answer. So Henry Ford had similar thoughts about just asking customers what they want. Or even, I would even extend that to, showing them things and saying, oh, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want that? Because, people, even designers, people who do this professionally, you get a fish in water sort of paradigm where you don't even realize the domain you're in necessarily. You can't think outside of your environment. So you can't, cars didn't exist to people. So how could they, how could you imagine a rural farmer in, when was Ford around? I think the early 1900s, envisioning an automobile in his head, right? It wouldn't happen. You need people who are technology specialists to make that leap. And then what you do is you take a prototype car and you give it to actual people, right? Now that probably didn't happen back then, but that's my ideal setup, right? So yeah, so this could be one-on-one discussions when you do this kind of exploration, or it could be in a group setting with focus groups. But again, my ideal situation would be to give people real prototypes and have them use it in a longitudinal study. So longitudinal means it's a $5 word for long term. A lot of studies will look at just a small period of time and then wrap up and say, okay, this is the finding. But what you'll discover is that over time, obviously things change, right? You might, maybe the first day you get an app, you use it a lot, but then it loses value and you stop using it for whatever reason. And again, showing people pictures of your app, it will get you something, but just be wary of what it's not giving you, right? Okay. And so, even if you can't do prototypes, there are other things you can do. Like, there are pilot releases, right? Or even like, so at Loblaw, Shoppers, we were going to do call it friends and family, right? Release, where we would release it only to a select group. And then in that case, we can do some bug testing. We can do some longitudinal user testing. We can do all sorts of things, right? So, yeah. Okay, so let's look at a case, for example. So this is a case from your textbook. Oh, and that's another thing. I hope you've all been keeping up to date with your textbook. You should be. I'll post up the chapters at the end of class today. But essentially, I mean, the book is very short. You should be make sure you read all the stuff in the textbook as well as listen to me talk, because it'll give you some detail that sometimes I have to leave out. Right? Okay. So, for example, there's you may have heard of microfinancing before. How the business model works is, instead of one person or one entity giving a big amount to one person, what you have is either a bunch of people giving out smaller loans that make up a big loan, or even just people giving out smaller loans individually, right? So, for example, you might and this is targeted at mostly helping people in third world countries. Although I can't really see why it would only be applicable there. I'm sure there could be lots of use cases for microfinancing in a developed country. But anyway, so the example would be a bunch of people. Let's say, what's 800 divided by it's 4 times 8, so 8 is 20. What is that? 24? No. 25. 4 times 8. What's 8 times 4? 32. Thank you. Okay, I know I can do math. So that would equal 32 people giving $25, and then the owner would, or someone in Kenya, for example, would receive that $800. And I'm not sure how the repayment works. It would probably be facilitated through this website or whatever system, and then people would be paid out individually, right? So it's a potentially powerful economic model, right? It's sort of like the Uber of financing, I guess. It was little bit before Uber's time, I guess. And I'm not too sure if this has been really successful, but maybe it's a thing like MP3 players, where some more players need to enter the field, and then it becomes more popular in general. But so let's say you're an organization, you want to do this, and you want to see how people will receive your messaging, right? Because the thing was, I remember now. So in this case, the organization was a religious organization, and they had a real question in their mind about how to present that fact that they were a religious organization, because they felt if they were too strong, they could maybe alienate potential givers who weren't of that religion. If it was too subtle, they thought, well, then the organization's not being represented by our true values. So that is something you could take to a focus group, for example. So, or you could do it, there's lots of ways to do it. You could do it with a survey, you could do it with a focus group or interviews. But basically, you choose photos and words that you suspect would tell the appropriate message, and then you get focus groups in and you show them, and you have them talk about what they think about the messaging that you're giving them. Okay. Okay. Right. So in this case, the facilitator explained the donation model, didn't say anything about religion. Each participant was given a sheet of poster board, a set of photos, and a set of words to use, plus additional blank cards for filling in their own words. Okay, so actually in this case, they had the users create a collage. So they were asked to create a collage that displayed the images and words they would use to explain the model to their friends and family. Pretty interesting. So they took a creative approach to this. So rather than just showing them and asking them, they actually had them do some participatory work. So then the participants came together again to present their collages, explaining why they chose certain images and text and why they chose not to include others. Okay. So something like this you might get out of that, right? Little collage with some of the words. That so it's not clear. Each participant, so they were filling in their own words, right? So these words were written by the participants, if they so choose. But I think, some of them were given. It looks like this one was handwritten. So that's an interesting approach to getting a feeling for the best way to communicate a message. So the thing with this type of method is it's not going to spit out an answer like a ticker tape. This is what you should do. right? Now there's almost a equally as challenging task to do, which is look at all this and then assemble your messaging yourself based on what you've seen here. And I mean, that task is certainly not straightforward for sure. Okay, so what were the findings from this case? So the project team gained insight. So it seemed that participants shied away from imagery that represented success in Western terms. For example, business suits and briefcases. They wanted to improve the lives of entrepreneurs without changing their culture. Fair enough. All user groups agreed that the focus on the site should be on the goal of the organization rather than the motivation behind it, religious inspiration. So participants did feel it was important that the organization remain true to who they are. And so they thought about putting the messaging in an about us area, which makes sense. And it's reasonable. Okay. So we're coming to usability testing now. And I think I should be done talking by 8, and then I have a couple tasks for you guys to do tonight. Okay, so usability testing is different than concept testing. So usability testing is probably one of the more frequently used testing methods because you sort of need to do it for everything, like every square inch of your site. I mean, not every square inch, but certainly most of it. And so what this part is doing is not so much, is this solving my problem? What do I think of the messaging? Do I understand what this product is offering me? It's none of that. What usability testing is looking at is, can people use your product in the way you think they can? So that means basically, yeah, what do we have here? Understand and improve on a user's ability to successfully complete key actions in your product. Okay, so you cannot do this with pictures, and you can't do it with, I mean, you can. I mean, you can do anything. You could do usability testing with paper prototypes, I suppose. But the thing is, you want to have a product at the end that is as usable as possible. So I recommend doing that usability testing towards the end. And I think I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to talk about usability testing. I can't exactly remember what the context was, but I think it was, let me see if I can just jog my mind here for a second. What was I saying about usability? Oh, yes. Okay. So I said I was asking the question, or sort of pondering the question. And this goes back to just because you can, should you? So in the initial phases up here, like in concept exploration, let's say, you could, or after that, it wouldn't be in concept exploration, but it would be, let's call it, you know what, I want to show you a diagram really fast. Do I have it here? Oh yeah, I posted it here. Okay, so this is my work Slack chat. Okay, so I want to show you this diagram. I'm going to show you a diagram here. Let me know. Okay, you should be able to see that diagram. This is a process diagram that I've been putting together for the design process at my job. So if you'll notice, there's 3 sections here: discovery, production design, and development. So up here in discovery, this is where so we take ideas and then we do some research, we build 3 or 4 prototypes, we bring it past architecture, and then we pick one. So this is where we sort of do the heavy lifting of the design, right? So we get the idea and we basically create the main concept. So now if we go in here, can I zoom in a little bit? Oh yeah, we can. The next stage is production design. That's when you're a little bit more heads down and just getting out the design. So from here, we're going to write requirements. we're going to review the requirements, review discovery, and then here we're going to design all the flows, including error states. Okay. Now, right here, we could do user testing. We could do user testing with a prototype. So this designer here could spend the time to do a fully fleshed out prototype that would look and feel almost exactly like what would come out of the development process. But as you can see, I didn't put any user testing here or usability testing here, right? Because that would take a lot of time. That's going to slow things down here. And the problem is, even if we do specify every little pixel, by the time it gets down here and into development and through QA, there probably is going to be some missed things anyways. So we have to do this usability test down here. And so this is where I'm proposing that we do usability tests, which is after it's been developed and even after QA. So QA is quality assurance. So QA will take what development has done and then match it up against the requirements in our designs and make sure that they built what was specified. So then what happens? Then we get into usability tests. This is where I would recommend doing this here, which is after it's been built in development, right? And the reason I am recommending that is because that's where you're going to find those nitty-gritty little detailed things that are really messing you up in your user flows, right? That's where you'll find out about, for example, let me show you. I'm going to put on my camera for real quick. How do I do that? Okay, hopefully you can all see me here. Okay, I'm going to open up a test version of this app that we were looking at. Okay. And so I hope you can see that. So what I did, so I opened up the app and I went to their create an account flow. See that? And this is the developed app. Now what happens is when you click email, so there's the first form, email. Okay? And I filled it out with my email address. Okay? Now, what would most of you do after that? Like you've done in every other freaking form that exists on the internet, is you're going to try and click on the next thing, right? Password. That's the you can see password. I want to click there to put in my password, but I can't click there. Why can't I click there? Maybe that's a bug or something. What's going on? Well, no, actually, you have to click this button on the keyboard, and then it brings you forward, right? Because see, there's an error condition. So that is a big problem. If that got out to production, there would be a huge drop off in that flow, right? You can't have that. And so even if it was specified properly in the designs in a pixel perfect prototype, that may still have gotten through. So there's that if it was specified, but then maybe we didn't specify that behavior necessarily. Or you wouldn't, even if we did specify, you wouldn't see the consequence of it until you saw it like that, it really working, right? So, and then of course, it takes a lot of effort to create those prototypes. So I think the approach I'm taking now is with medium fidelity prototypes where some of the functionality is there, and just static comps should get us 90% of the way. And then after development, we're going to get user testing to get the final 10%, which shouldn't be too much. Ideally, it should be like what I showed you there, where it was a form that wasn't quite right, and we just have to change the form a little bit. Okay, so let's get back to user testing. Usability testing. Because user testing, the term user testing could include that other stuff I was talking about earlier, but usability testing is a specific thing, okay? And so make sure when you're talking about discovery and concept testing, you don't say usability testing. Because a UX snob, or expert as we like to call ourselves, will tell you, hey, that's wrong. It's not usability testing, right? Okay. So also usability testing was pretty much where things started. That's where a lot of testing, that's where it started in academia. And so it's kind of the oldest type of test. And it's what most people who aren't UX designers will be familiar with. More so than like the concept testing, things like that, discovery, research. So there's something else called user acceptance testing, which is short form to UAT, okay? And that is different than usability testing. So user acceptance testing is usually something that QA and a business analyst will do, because what user acceptance testing is the what. Usability is testing the how, right? So user acceptance testing might be, oh, there's an export to Excel feature. And so, a user group requested that, and now they're looking at the solution and they're going through and saying, yes, that export to Excel feature exists and it does what I want, right? That's different. It can catch bugs, it can catch usability problems, but that's not what it is meant to do. And so you shouldn't rely on user acceptance testing to catch usability problems, because you could pass user acceptance but not be very usable, right? Because so you might be able to export an Excel file, but it's buried in 4 layers of menus or something like that. So you see how there's a slight difference. There's lots of testing with the US and then the rest of the word in front of it, right? We have user testing, usability testing, user acceptance testing. And so it can be, in your brain, it just kind of mashes everything together as, say, user testing or usability testing. But they are slightly different things, okay? And I want you to be aware of the difference. Okay, so, and I think this might be towards the end. Oh, no, then we have a couple more slides. And okay, not too much to go. So what are some steps when you're doing any type of research, really, but usability especially? So these are the basic steps. First, you're going to plan out the research, and it's basically planning involves. Do I have a slide that breaks it down? No. Okay, so planning involves who are you going to test, what are you going to test, and what do you hope to learn? So with usability testing, a lot of that involves scenarios. So you might say, okay, the scenario is the user registers on the application. Another scenario might be the user logs in. Another scenario might be the user goes in and checks their notifications, right? So you have to plan for that. You might write a script for that. You might you have to make sure that your prototype or development software is ready for the test. And if it's not, you need to figure out when it's going to be ready or if it's going to be ready. Okay, so after that, the basics, like what are you going to research? How are you going to do that? Then you have to figure out how you're going to get people. How are you going to get people in the door? There are a number of ways to do this. So at my current job, I actually reached out to an existing group, which was super easy. I just said, hey, are you guys, you got their group was called Consumer Research, and I just reached out to them. I said, hey, I'm a new UXR, can you help me? In so many words, I was much nicer, and I brought them cookies, and then they're willing to get me 1,000 users for a study that I want to do. That's one. Most commonly that probably won't be available to you. I use social media. I used that a lot when I was doing my grad studies. I would post up a link on Facebook and say, hey, can you help me, do usability tests, come down to the lab. There are services now, quite a number of services that that can do remote usability testing. So let me show you this site. So usertesting.com, I was looking at recently, actually, to use this tool. You can, so for, they have a panel. So panel means they can get participants for you. So part of, did I heard a beep. Did someone message me? I don't think so. Okay, all still good. Let me know if you can't. Oh, it was just user testing was trying to chat with me. I thought it was maybe one of you guys. But so they provide everything. All you have to provide for this is the prototype or software and the types of people that you want in your test, and of course you have to pay. It's not free. This tool is actually pretty expensive. Then you can send it out, and what comes back to you are completed user tests, because people they do it remotely. And so the app will give them some instructions and then show them the app and then record their interaction and record their face and record their audio and then dump that all into a place where you can then go and see all the results. And so user testing says they said they could turn around results in 2 hours. That's groundbreaking, because what that means is that, going back to my little diagram that I was showing you, that, look, aside from the prototype effort, I mean, that makes this a lot more feasible, right? Because now you can, in a day, you can put together a prototype, have the study, get the results back in one single day, where it used to, when I did these, it would take me, well, at least a few days, right? Because, I mean, you need a day to recruit, at least, and then a day for, I mean, how you can really do maybe 10 of these in a day if you're really, really ambitious, because these take a lot of energy and you get tired. And so I would usually do 5 or 6 in a day. And that was my whole day. And then I had to still compile the results, and I had to deal with the video and all that stuff. So this is another, remote testing is another option. And that's what I'm actually going to get you guys to do tonight, because we're all remote. So usertesting.com, they wanted $40,000 for unlimited user tests, which sounds like a lot, but 40K is the low end of a salary. So just picture, like, you got to ask yourself, how many user tests could someone do if I paid them 40,000 a year? Not many. So think about that. There's another one called Try My UI. That's very similar to usertesting.com. Okay. And you know what I recommend is you guys going through and becoming testers. So you can click here and you can go through there, get paid to test. I'm not sure what exactly is involved in this. Same with here. You can get you can be a tester, and I think it'd be really good for experience for you guys. So first of all, you can make money, right? You can make $60, I think, in 20 minutes, which is, to me, that seems better than like Uber driving, right? You don't need to use your car. You can just, if you have a half an hour or something, or how it works, get $10 via PayPal for every 20-minute video you complete. Okay, not bad. So if you have 20 minutes to kill, you might as well make $10. And then I think it would be a really good learning for you guys, is to go through and be a participant, which you're going to do today as well. Okay, so recruiting is always a big problem. If you can figure out a solution for that, or throw money at it and solve it, I would do that, because it is very difficult to get people in the door. And then we're writing, like, so these are either scenarios or a script. Sometimes people write out an actual script, word for word, of everything they're going to say. And then you actually have to facilitate the study. So if it's in person, you have to usually set up a camera, set up a space that's quiet, have people come in. And then, of course, you have to analyze the results, look at what you saw, whether it's a qualitative or quantitative study, and present the results to somebody. If not just yourself, for thinking about recommendations on how to improve your design. Okay, steps. So quantitative, I think we talked about this already, but remember, quantitative research involves numerical values. Okay, so you are measuring things that can easily be have a number assigned to them. So that doesn't mean, so you saw with Likert questions, you can quantify things that are traditionally thought of as unquantifiable. So for example, frustration level. Normally people don't put numbers on that, but you certainly could. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how frustrated are you, right? So the good thing about quantitative research is if you have enough participants, you can validate it statistically, right? So if you have two groups of people, and you can do a statistical process called an analysis of variance. And what it will do is it'll tell you if those two groups, if the difference you're seeing in the results are due to chance or not. So normally the level that we accept for that is a 5% chance, right? So in medicine, when people do drug tests, it's a 1% chance, right? And so that's what you might hear someone say, the p-value, right? A p-value is that value. So if a p-value is 0.05 or less, that means it's statistically significant and that you are 95% sure that the two distributions are indeed two distributions, separate distributions, and the difference is not due to chance. Okay, you can't do that with qualitative research. Okay, it could potentially reduce the likelihood of a designer's bias. That is possible, but I'm sure you've heard this cliche. I think Mark, what's his name? What's that writer with the white beard? Samuel Clemens is Mark. What's his name? I gotta look that up because that's gonna bug me. Samuel Clemens is Mark Twain. That's it. So he said there are three types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So you can manipulate statistics or the interpretation thereof in any way you'd like. And so just because you're using numbers and statistics and quantitative research doesn't guarantee that you're removing bias from that research. So just keep that in mind, that it can remove bias, but it's not a guarantee. So it can provide a higher degree of confidence that the results are reflective of the entire user base, but the caveat there is usually the rule of thumb is 30 participants. That's the bare minimum that you can get away with. Of course, the more the merrier. So I think often, let's say if Gallup is doing a poll of an election, they'll poll 1,000 people. And even then, their error bars are 2 or 3%, right? So the more the merrier. But 30 is your cutoff for sure. And you could it could help in finding the same errors that are encountered many, many times. But you can do that with qualitative research too. Okay. Qualitative. So this mostly involves just observing people and seeing what they do. Okay, and not really measuring it, but so for example, when I showed you that form on the phone, there's nothing quantitative about that. There's no counting. Like, I don't need to see 30 people struggle with that form to understand that that's a problem, right? So I did qualitative research. I looked at that, and actually I brought it to 4 other people, right? I brought it to 2 other designers and a stakeholder and my wife. I said, here, try this. And they all did the same thing, which I suppose is a little bit quantitative in that sense. So I said the same thing happened 4 times, but essentially, I didn't. It didn't really need to do that, right? And then so another thing is you may be qualitative is you have to use your judgment. What you do with quantitative too, but with qualitative, it's a little more subjective, I'll say, because so let's say if you see you're looking at a user test and someone's thinking out loud and they're going, geez, I don't know what to look at, and they're moving their mouse around, right? You need someone to look at that and then make a subjective judgment as to what exactly is happening. So you'd have to say, oh, they're saying they don't know where to go and they're moving their mouse around a lot. I think they don't know how to use the navigation, right? But if I did a quantitative study where I timed people doing a task one way and doing a task another way, it's objective which one was faster. As anything can be objective, that's objective. Okay, so you see the difference there. So with qualitative, where you're looking at people's behavior, you need to use your expertise and your knowledge of just being a human to interpret that data much more than quantitative, because it doesn't go away totally for quantitative, but it's just much more for qualitative. Okay. Oh yes, how many users? So this says 20. The rule of thumb that I've often seen is 30. But if you're not publishing anything, it doesn't really matter, because again, the point is you're trying to uncover friction in your flows and in your feature and in your functionality. And so if 5 out of the 10 of your participants struggle with this thing, do we really need to do another 20? To, if I was writing a paper, yes, because I would want to say something like people in general have trouble with this. But if I'm building a product, I just need to know that something is wrong, right? So I'd say the rules, if you're building a product, the rules get relaxed a little bit. If you're publishing a paper in a peer-reviewed article, then the rules tighten up. So for qualitative usability tests, where you're just observing, there's been some studies that say 5 to 8 users will uncover about 80% of your usability problems. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to do a lot of users for this, to be honest. And a lot of times as a designer, I know right away after one, right? If I see one user and they're struggling, that's all I need to see, right? And really, I'll just do more to help convince other stakeholders that, yes, this is really a problem, because that's part of the issue. That's part of the task, is now once you've gone through this research, you're going to have to go and convince some gatekeepers on your findings and what those findings mean for changes to the design. Okay. Excellent. So here's what we're going to do. Any questions on that so far before I move on to the hands-on portion of the class tonight? Any questions? We'll go back to the chat here. No questions on qualitative versus quantitative or any of the other topics we talked about today. Okay. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. So for today's participation mark, it will be given for participation for handing in today's user testing deliverables. So I'm going to create a Dropbox. I'll call it User Testing Deliverables, and I'll put it on Desire to Learn. Then what I want people to do is go to the chat room on Desire to Learn, okay? Because what I want you to do is everybody is going to take turns being a tester and being a participant, okay? So you should do, okay, and now let's skip to this slide. So I'm gonna have you do 2 types of user tests, okay? The first one is quantitative, and the second one is qualitative, okay? Before we get started on, I'll go through this and then there's some software I want you to install as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to test the usability of a trackpad versus a mousepad in a drawing task. Okay, so this is pretty generic. I just want you guys to get a handle on doing this task. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to measure the time it takes to complete a task. Okay, using the mouse and using the trackpad. Okay, so everyone needs to try being a tester and being a participant. You'll probably have to be a participant like a few times, right? Maybe 10 times, and then a tester. Well, you'll have to run 4 or 5 users per test. Okay, so here's the task. If you're the tester, this is the task that you're going to ask your tester to perform. Okay, so you're going to ask them to open Azure. Okay, if I don't think let me know in the chat if your Azure subscription has expired or your free trial has expired. If it has, that's a problem for you because you need to use it for your prototype. But if it's a problem for right now, you can use any drawing tool, but just make sure that you use the same tool for both tasks. Okay, so what you're going to do is instruct the participants to do the task as fast as possible. Oh, okay, someone has expired. Okay, like I said, that's a problem. You're not going to be able to do your prototypes. So you could use Microsoft Paint. You could use PowerPoint. You could use, yeah. So, well, you should have been asking for your educational license. So I think most of you probably have that. You can use that. But if you don't, you can use PowerPoint. Okay, so what you're going to do is instruct the participant to do the task as fast as possible. So you're actually also, you're going to, should I get you to record? No, you know what? I thought I was going to get you to record the screen, but we'll bypass that little bit for now, just to make the task a little bit simpler. But normally, I would use a tool called Snagit to screen capture. It's a very good tool that for Windows. So actually for Macs, you can record the screen with QuickTime, but for PC, you need something like Snagit. And so you can get that for $67. And so I've bought this. I use this all the time. And so you can screenshot little snippets, and you can also video record the screen. And so I use that a lot. Okay, so what you're going to do is, so you're going to start, so this is through video conference, obviously. So you're going to connect through the chat room, and you're going to arrange to connect on a video call, okay? Through either Skype or probably through Google Hangouts would be easy as well. So connect as the tester and the participant, connect together online through a video conferencing service, okay? And then get the participant up and running. So get their application on the screen and ready to go. And then get a timer ready. So you can use your phone separately, or you could use a web timer, okay? And then basically tell the participant, go. And then start the timer. And watch the participant draw. So I want the participant to draw 6 boxes, at least make them 100 by 100 pixels big, so 6 squares. Fill in 3 of the boxes with red and fill in 3 with black. So another thing is you could let the participant practice. If they don't know how to do it, so let's say if they're opening up Paint or something and they don't know how to do it, you can let them practice 1 or 2 times first without timing them. And then once they figure out how to do it, it's a pretty easy task. Then you say, okay, now we're going to do it for real. And then, delete everything off the screen and say, go. Start your timer. Draw 6 boxes, fill 3 in with red, 3 in with black, stop the timer. As soon as they fill in that third one, as soon as they fill in the last one, stop the timer, okay? Now, then I want you to, in Excel or in Word, write down the time, okay? And I want you as a tester, I want you to do that with 5 people, okay? So you have to go in the chat room and recruit 5 different testers. Okay, and I want you to do, so I want you to, okay, so here's what else I want you to do. I want you to, so we're going to do something called a between participant study. Okay, so there are 2 types of ways you can run a study. You can do within or between subjects. So within means that every participant does both conditions of the experiment. So in this experiment, condition 1 is using the mouse. Condition 2 is using the trackpad. So if we did a within subject, actually, you know what? Let's do that. We're going to do within. If we do a within subject study, it means the participant does both conditions. So have each participant draw the 6 boxes with the mouse and then draw the 6 boxes with the trackpad, okay? And then make sure you keep track of each one. And then the other type of study is called a between participant study. And that means each participant only does one condition. Now, the problem with within is we do get the participants doing more things. Team viewer is fine. Yep, anything that you can use to share screens is more than fine. You can, oh yeah. So with within, what the problem with within is the first condition affects the second thing that you do. So the way to alleviate that is you have to randomize the presentations of the conditions. So what that means to you is, so for participant 1, do mouse first and then the trackpad. And then participant 2, do the trackpad first and then the mouse. Okay, so make sure you alternate. And so that what we're doing there is we're averaging out the effect of the first versus the last. Okay, so I mean, this is just for practice. This isn't a properly conducted scientific study, but we're trying to get there as close as possible. Okay, so that's basically it. That is for the quantitative study. So what I want you to submit as a in the Dropbox for your participation marks are the times of the studies, okay? And then you can average them out. So average out the what you got for the mouse and what you got for the trackpad, and then report those and put those in an Excel sheet. Now, given that won't be statistically significant, but what we can do is we'll pool all the data together. And then again, because you guys are going to have to be participants more than once tonight, so it won't be an exact. Like, I wouldn't do this if I was going to publish this, but we're dealing with the classroom limitations tonight. So that's what we're doing for that. Okay, so I want you to put in the Dropbox that I'm going to create as soon as I'm done. I want you to put in an Excel sheet with your, and you just put participant 1, participant 2, participant 3, and their times. Okay, so that's number 1. That's the first thing I want you to do. That should take you till about 9. Then what I want you to do is the same thing, but with a qualitative study. So what I want you to do is go to, okay, so I was going to make you video record for this. Okay, I don't think, you know what, I think I'm not going to make you record for this either. So just ignore the part about Snagit. I don't want to make things too complex now that I'm thinking about it. I just, there might be too many technical things to do, and I want you to focus on the task itself. Okay, so don't worry about recording for the qualitative or quantitative. But what I want your participants to do, so as the tester, I want you to give this URL to the students. So that's actually, it's something I haven't been working on this, but I've been working for York lately. So that's why I use this site. The other thing I want you to do, I want you to ask your participants to think out loud. Think aloud. So what that means is you ask, and you might have to remind your participants several times over the study to basically just speak out loud their internal thoughts. So for example, we'll go to the site. We'll go to a site right now. So let's say, you know, we're going to, let's say the Star or something, Toronto Star. Okay. And you say, okay, I want you to find out how much does the Star cost? And we'll ignore this big banner at the bottom. But let's say that banner didn't exist. So then what would happen is the user would come here and say, and they would speak aloud their thought process. So they'd say, I don't see anything that says price or cost here. I'm looking for cost. Okay, maybe it's in the menu area. Is there anything for cost here? Okay, death notices, that doesn't seem like cost. Entertainment doesn't seem like cost. Oh, maybe in subscriptions. Is it in there? Okay, let's look in there. Oh, okay. Here we go. I found it. Okay, that is how Think Aloud works. Basically, you want to get access to their internal thought process. So it's really important when you're doing remote because you can't really see them, and at least you know, you need some. Well, you can, I guess, if you have the webcam on them, but you want to get a sense not just of what's going on with the mouse on the screen, but also what's happening inside their mind, right? So here are the tasks that I want you to ask your participant to do. Okay, so I want you to find the names of the instructors of the program. How much does the program cost? Is this program online or in class? When are the classes offered? Enroll in the program. Don't actually just go up to the very last step before you enter in your payment information. So what I want you to do as a tester is make 2 to 3 notes of some interesting utterances so I want you to do for each one, do 5 participants. So in the qualitative one as well, I want you to make notes on some interesting utterances and what you saw or heard do you think is a problem for usability, right? So for example, there what I just showed you, you would say, they really didn't see anything about price. They had to go into a buried menu and see a tiny little subscription thing which they almost missed, which could be problematic. That is generally the type of feedback that I'm looking to get. Okay, so any questions about the activities for this evening? Just pausing for questions, comments. Someone is confused. So what exactly is confusing? Off the slides. Camera. Everything. Okay, I can't help with that. You have to dial it. You have to narrow it down a little bit. Is anyone else confused on everything or anything specific? Because I'm not going to just redo that whole speech that I just gave. How do I turn on my camera? Screen share, camera on. There we go. Broadcast settings. So the first thing I suggest everyone do is in this chat room is declare yourself a tester and ask for participants. And then once you find a participant, connect with them in a video conferencing tool and run through the tests. Could you write a quick doc on what you want us to do for the activity we need to submit for? Yeah, it's in the slides. So take a look at the stuff I was showing you. That's basically what I would put in a document, right? So those slides are in Desire to Learn. To do, yeah. So in the quantitative, we put the slides back on. So in the quantitative, right, there's the tasks here. Open Exure, start the timer, have the participants draw 6 boxes of at least 100 by 100 pixels big, fill 3 of the boxes with red, fill 3 with black, stop the timer. And then record each one of the times for your participants. For the quantitative, it is this task here. So have your participant go to this URL, remind them to think out loud, ask them to do these tasks, and then make note of 2 to 3 interesting utterances or actions and explain why you saw them as problematic. Could I go over the Excel sheet again? Yes. So in the Excel sheet, just record the times for the task, right? So that's for the quantitative. The quantitative in the Excel. So here, I'll add to this here. Let's see here. In Excel. Record the elapsed time in Excel for each participant. So for what you want us to submit, the first part, you just need the times we record. And the second part, all you require is interesting utterances and our thoughts on them. You got it. That's correct. So you could put it, if you wanted, you could put it in the same Excel sheet, really. I just want to see it, whether it's in Excel or whatever. But okay, I'm going to go create the Dropbox right now. And new folder. So this is class 7 user testing submissions. Save. So it can be, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter. It could be Word. Excel, I just thought Excel because it's for numbers, and I usually, like, when I record research data, I use Excel, but it's only a few numbers. So, right, you're going to do 5, 5, and 5. So you could make a table in Word just as easily, right? You don't really need Excel. Sure, Word or file or PDF is fine. Excel sheet. Okay, so again, what I suggest is everyone in the main chat view is declare yourself as a tester looking for participants, and then agree to meet on TeamViewer or Skype or Google Hangouts or Join Me. How do I get to the main chat? Okay, the main chat is in Desire to Learn. So let me just view as a student. And so this is Desire to Learn. I'm going to go to, oh, okay, no, I'm in the course. I'm going to go to Other and then Chat and then Lecture 7 Chat. And there we are. Everybody's here. Excellent. A couple more people in this chat. So don't be afraid. If you're a tester, just declare yourself a tester, and if you can't find a participant, then just try being a participant for a while. And I think it should. I might have to assign people, but I think it should be okay. Someone asked if they could use roommates. That is fine. You can use your roommates. But just that said, it would be good for you to, very valuable for you to be a participant as well. So please try, if you do use non-classmates for study participants, please also at least volunteer to be a participant for someone else. Any more questions or anything else unclear? Okay, I don't see a lot of talking in the chat room. Are you guys connecting elsewhere? Okie doke. Is there anyone still not sure how to proceed? End of today, 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Specific program. Not sure what you mean by specific program. The video conference, do you mean? Oh, you mean, the program to register for. Is that what you mean? Sorry, please clarify. Okay, anyone still on the stream? I'll be on till 10, so you can chat me. Like I'll check the chats about every 5 minutes or so, and so let me know if you have any questions or clarifications that you would like made, and that's about it. So I'll be around till 10, and I'll leave the stream going until then. Everybody still hanging in there? Hopefully. Just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that low effort submissions will not be marked. I can tell.